Thank you for auditing the always positive new music review show hosted by a French professor who. Again? That's 2 episodes in a row. I've been interrupted. 2 episodes in a row, I'm actually going to be doing editing. 2 episodes in a row where I'm going to have a guest star. I'm going to be reviewing the album WTF Is Even Going On, which you might be asking about this channel, all this editing going on, by Carpetgarden. And it's going to be a review followed by an interview with the artist. Now I get it, that's not very professional. Obviously, I'm going to have a lot of bias if I have an interview with the artist on the very same episode that I'm doing the review. Yeah, I don't know, so what? Do you know how many magazines you've read? Well, if you've ever read a magazine, statistically, probably about half my audience has never read a magazine. More about that later. But I mean, if you read magazines, it happens all the time. You'll get an interview and then you'll also do a review of the artist. But I don't really care. This is just a hobby for me anyway. But really, I was always going to be biased. Because the only reason I am reviewing Carpetgarden, the only reason I've ever heard of Carpetgarden is because of my daughter. Now, if you've watched this channel for a while, you know my daughter used to make appearances wearing a goat mask, so we call her Goat. We stopped doing that when she got to be a certain age. It's just not good for the old brain to have too much internet fame at a young age. Or potentially at any age. The jury's still out. But last year, I asked Goat for her favorite albums of the year. And Goat is the biggest Billie Eilish fan in the whole world. She's one of those people. So I was certain that Billie Eilish was going to win the Goat's stamp, that was going to be her favorite album of the year. But out of nowhere, she stamps The Way He Looks by Carpetgarden. Now, we're going to talk about this in a little bit. In the interview, I talk about how she actually hid Carpetgarden from me because of Carpetgarden's thematics. A lot about sex and drugs. Let's just be out there, okay? A lot of Carpetgarden songs are about sex and drugs. So perhaps my daughter was a little bit surprised that I encouraged this music, that I listened to it, and then I said I liked it. I've often said on this channel, when talking about my parenting style, better to have bad words than bad art. By that, I mean, my kids just... The wheels on the bus is an unstoppable force of evil, which will take over every child's brain. Same thing with Baby Shark. Do-do-do-do-do. So I've always just sort of said, screw that. We'll just listen to some Wu-Tang. I mean, it depends. It depends on what it is. But in general, I've really tried to emphasize that the kids understand art, even if it has bad words in it, and then sort of contextualize it for them, sort of do the job of parenting. But this is a little different, because it isn't just bad words. It's someone being sort of a bad role model. Someone who talks about getting high a lot, about waking up in random dudes' cars. And I don't want my daughter getting super high and being with toxic men and waking up in their cars or whatever. But I would also say it's better bad role models than bad art. This is more sort of parenting advice, but one thing I learned, okay? There are no role models. Bill Cosby taught that to me. Bill Cosby was my hero. Bill Cosby was, as he was for millions of people my age, a surrogate father who represented the kind of kindness, gentleness, warmth that I did not always feel in my daily life. When he fell, it was very clear. No role models. Inside my head, Mr. Rogers, used to had a dog fighting ring. Okay, he didn't really. Mr. Rogers probably was the real deal, but that's how insistent I am. No role models. I tell my kids all the time, no role models, save for me, save for my wife, save for people that they actually know. Now, you shouldn't take me as a role model. I mean, I'm as good of a role model as you can possibly have. I am who I project myself to be, but you don't know that. I might have taken over Mr. Rogers' dogfighting ring. You don't know that. Maybe that's why Bo and Toby bark so much on this channel. So this whole thing has been an interesting journey with Carpetgarden's music. And another thing I will say as a parent is that kids don't respond to words. They don't respond to rules. They only respond to example. That's it. That's the only thing you can do as a parent. So I don't do drugs. I barely ever drink. I'm in a dedicated monogamous relationship. More than that, I work really hard on myself and on my relationships, and I take people seriously, and I exhibit empathy, which is all you can really do. Because the thing is, you cannot suppress young people's desire to hear about sex and drugs. Take me in high school. I did not do drugs, and I did not get my first kiss until my freshman year of college, okay? Damn, confessional, but it's true. Like, all I listened to was music about sex and drugs. And it didn't make me want sex and drugs, well, at least not the drugs part. But it didn't actually change my opinion. It didn't make me want something. It was just good music. So I could listen to Eazy-E without being a murderous bad person. I could listen to the Rolling Stones and not be an even worse person than Eazy-E. If you actually listen to the Rolling Stones, they have multiple songs about statutory rape. Multiple songs about statutory rape. It's coming. Enjoy the Rolling Stones while you can. Eventually, someone's going to unearth Stray Cat Blues that's been sitting on one of their 5 best albums and going to say, "You're only how many years old?" So it gets complicated, though, in the modern era with the parasocial relationship, where we feel a more intimate relationship with somebody. So perhaps my daughter feels closer to Carpetgarden than she does, than she does to Billie Eilish, right? When there's that parasocial relationship of Instagram and all that. But that's what's been interesting about this whole experiment, this whole interview, because what happened was, Goat's birthday is coming up, so I just thought, Carpetgarden's big, but not like super big. Like maybe they would agree to do an interview. So I just sent them a message. I just sent them a message on Instagram, and they instantly said yes. Just totally friendly, totally there. As you'll see in the interview, they are ridiculously nice. They actually are a role model. I mean, creative and thoughtful and ambitious and kind and very cognizant of the importance of interpersonal relationships. Maybe they don't make the best decisions, and maybe they focus a lot of their songwriting on those bad decisions because that's more interesting to people than saying, "I figured it out." But I'm reminded of what Goat also says about psychedelia. My daughter loves psychedelia. She loves like the Beatles and imagery and swirls and Paisley. She always just says, "Take the art, leave the drugs." She came up with that, by the way. Take the art, leave the drugs. That's perfect. That's my attitude towards all music. So now that I've kind of gotten that out of the way, I don't know if that was interesting to you. Maybe you're just a Carpetgarden fan and you just want to know. But all my videos are video essays in addition to being reviews. And this is sort of a larger thing about parenting and about the influence that music can have on young people. And why I'm positive that this music is a great influence on my daughter, even if I hope she never does anything that they say in their music. So the thing about this music is it's hard to classify. When I talk to them, and you'll see later in the interview, they refer to their music as queercore. They do identify as trans. They do use they, them pronouns. I believe I misgender them once in the interview, which I may edit out or might leave it in because understanding that that's a mistake is an important step towards not making that mistake again. But when I was talking to them about the music, to me it feels a lot like Pavement. It feels a lot like 90s kind of slacker rock, but then mixed in is very of the now, not just indie pop, but multi-pop, where there's no boundaries, there's no zones that are forbidden to go into. And this is where I'm going to go on a separate spiel. Hey, record labels, you're leaving money on the table, baby. The next rock movement is right there in front of you. Stop reacting to TikTok. Record labels, you're never going to figure out TikTok, ever. No one can figure out TikTok. Give it up. Stop giving millions of dollars to randos who have a 20-second song that hits with people for 30 minutes. Stop it. I am giving you free advice, record labels. Geffen, Universal, Def Jam, Vivendi, whoever the hell you are. Stop thinking about TikTok, okay? You have all these pop superstars sitting out there making music in their bedroom. Now, mind you, I'm not saying that every single artist that I review and like could be a pop superstar. Hey, record labels, don't sign Black Country New Road. They made the best album of the year, but that's not going to get you the billions. Billy Woods is making amazing rap music, but that's not going to make you the billions. But there are the billions sitting out there for you, and I can see it. Why can't you? Why can't you see that Carpet Garden has the potential to be a generational defining force in pop music? Stop reacting to the zeitgeist and start forming it, you cowards. That's what you used to do. When I was a kid, you formed the zeitgeist. You didn't wait for it on TikTok. And I'm not making fun of the kids. I'm making fun of you, record executives. You A&R man at MCA Records. When Geffen signed Nirvana and slammed Nirvana into my eye holes, they knew what they were doing. I didn't know I wanted to be Kurt Cobain until I was shown Kurt Cobain. I was a 14-year-old kid in suburban Massachusetts who was listening to random smatterings of hip-hop and Rolling Stones and whatever. And then I was shown what the new coolness was. You know, the executives used to know what to do. They would go into an area, they would go into a subgenre, they would see what has emotional resonance with a small group of people, a deep level of emotional resonance with a small group of people. That's who you're looking for, not TikTok. Steve Lacy's not going to make you billionaires. Steve Lacy's great. Steve Lacy is better than the fame that he has achieved. But that's not how it works. So I'm going to go further than that, labels. Because this is my push for why Carpet Garden should be the next Billie Eilish, okay? This is my push. But it's not just Carpet Garden. There's all of these artists, including Quadeka, who I just reviewed last couple days ago. So I'm going to help you, you dunderheaded schmucks in the major label companies. I'm going to give you everything you need to usher in the next genre of zeitgeist-defining youth culture that you can sink your greedy little teeth into and hopefully make the world a better place, like you did with Nirvana. When you shoved Nirvana into my earballs, you made the world a better place. You can do it. So I'll give you a name, I'll tell you what region it's from, and I'll give you some acts. First of all, I'm going to name it. I'm going to name this kind of music. And I'm sorry, Carpet Garden, I'm not going to stick with queercore. You see, I'm fascinated by music criticism. Okay? It's my hobby, but I'm also a historian of it. This magazine right here, Cream Magazine, from May 1971, is really important. This is the magazine where the term heavy metal was popularized by Mike Saunders describing the album by Lord Baltimore. Now, it wasn't the first time that term was ever used, but it was where the term was popularized. Lester Bangs, a year earlier, in the same magazine, different issue, popularized the term punk rock. These terms have meaning, and once you can name them, then you can exploit them, and you can share them, and they can become an idea and not just words in some random article. By the way, this also includes David Marsh's, this issue, David Marsh's review of Question Mark and the Mysterians, which is about the 5th reference to punk music. So this one magazine right here has the first heavy metal and the 5th punk. Pretty interesting. I looked for that for years. So what am I going to name this for you? Huh? You dunderheaded schmucks? I-core. Internet core. That's what I'm calling it. Spread it around, everybody. Internet core is going to take over. The term is intentionally vague and open. You are allowed to put anything in the internet core terminology except for underground hip-hop. Because underground hip-hop doesn't need your help. It doesn't need your help, major labels. You missed the boat. The whole SoundCloud thing, they actually did pretty well exploiting that. But just, in general, hip-hop is doing its own thing. It doesn't need help. Rock music, electronic music, folk music, indie music, all that needs your predatory help. The thing about I-core is that it's not limited by genre, because the people that make it are defined by their expansive identities, by the idea that identities are now no longer just what you were assigned at birth, they are whatever you believe them to be. That's a change. It is expansive. It's not a coincidence that this is all happening, that we're living in a world where there's increasingly more and more and more little tiny subgenres and little tiny definitions. Meanwhile, the people who live it, the people who are actually growing up and who are going to be your audience base, are deciding that they get to decide their own identity. So I-core is expansive. There is no gatekeeper that can keep you out. The only exception is cultural appropriation. So I-core is never going to be like, hey, we're making African music now. No. It's just going to be this sort of indie, poppy mishmash of a whole bunch of different sounds all coming together that can all be made in one's bedroom. Now, what region does I-core come from? The internet. The whole internet. But not just the internet where people are passionately interested in making things and talking about things, okay? I don't know if that's on Mastodon or Twitter or Discord or Reddit or I don't even know where. I don't know where, but I know that you can find it. It's the whole damn internet. That's the region. That's what I was discussing in my Quatica review as well. It's like he's so popular because he represents the people, the terminally online young people who so desperately want someone to represent them well. And that's the future. What acts, not just Quatica, but acts like Quatica's label mate Jane Remover. And especially for the purposes of this interview, this review, carpetgarden. Okay? Like, carpetgarden has so much going for them. So much potential. And the thing is, I didn't know that stringy-haired junkies from Seattle were going to represent me. I didn't know that their angst was going to reflect my angst. And in suburban Massachusetts, in the house where I used to live, let's just assume there's another teenager there. They might not know that a trans person of color who can write wonderful hooks, who writes about risky behavior, but is also very earnest and kind, making amazing indie pop bedroom music. They don't know that carpetgarden is going to be the one who does that for them. You know, my daughter didn't know that. My daughter didn't know that this person was going to be more important to her than Billie Eilish. And let's not forget, you idiots, you wouldn't have picked up on Billie Eilish if she wasn't an industry plant. I'm kidding. But I mean, if she didn't have industry connections, you never would have put two and two together. You lucked out on that one. TikTok. TikTok's fine, but you're not going to get the dedicated fans. How easy is it? Anyways, I should be a studio executive. Because the thing is, I don't know all of these acts, right? Because I don't know. How could I know them? I only know carpetgarden because my daughter stumbled upon carpetgarden in a algorithmically induced haze. But if you just look around and find any smaller group with a dedicated following, give them $10 million, spend $50 million promoting them, get them in the goddamn Hot Topics. Get carpetgarden in Hot Topic. And I'm not saying that as a slight. You look up on the wall of Hot Topic, 99% of the t-shirts up there are of good bands, okay? It's not Hot Topic's fault that the rest of the cool places went away, okay? When I grew up, there was like 30 places to get cool t-shirts. Now there's like Hot Topic and that's it. You know, we need to do that. And while you're at it, studio executives and all that, you need to figure out YouTube better too. It's like they can't figure out how to exploit because they don't understand the value of the thing that they take. So with YouTube and with musicians, they take them and then they say, well, let's change what they do to better reflect what we used to do. When all they have to do is just give them money to just do what they were doing in the first place. Let's get a carpetgarden produced by Butch Vig. Butch Vig still alive? I don't know. Anyways, now that I'm 19 minutes and 41 seconds into this fairly exhaustive or perhaps exhausting take on Carpet Garden's importance in my life and potentially in the world, let's get to a review of their music. Let me give you the total best example of a Carpet Garden song. If you don't think this is a banger, I'm afraid that your bangometer is broken. Click on the banana above the banana above the bananas above the oranges to hear the song IDC. This is absolutely essential Carpet Garden. This is everything that Carpet Garden does so well. This is what makes Carpet Garden a potential indie pop superstar, and in this house, an absolute superstar. They are funny, self-effacing, super gay, very into bedroom rock, but also making a pop banger, also kind of an exercise in style. Remember that lack of gatekeeper? Remember that genrelessness that's a part of iCore? That's right here. It's like 90s slacker rock mixed with Not Fade Away by Buddy Holly. Mixed with like surf guitars. And it's so catchy. And I remember listening to this song thinking, wow, this is really a rocket ship to the moon. This right here is the kind of song that could make it real big, baby. And then I heard the lyric, he only likes me when my dick is in his mouth. And I thought, oh, no, that doesn't work. But now I realize how stupid I was. That's what will make it work. That's what makes it work. That little bit of danger, that little bit of darkness. Okay? The darkness at the edges and the darkness at the center. And the lightness at the edges and the lightness at the center. Gorgeous just movement between all the different parts and so catchy with this great rhythmic boom, 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 boom. I could sing the whole song for you right now. My new boy left me 'cause I spent all of my money. Like, it's that kind of song. And it creates a connection to it. It's just, and the lyrics are essential Carpet Garden as well. Bathing in the excess of consumption, both conception, I'm not going to edit that out. Excess consumption. The Human Torch was denied a bank loan. Excess consumption. Bathing in excess consumption of both drugs and dongs. Subtle expression of self-loathing, and how those things mix together. Really a slice of chaotic young life. And full of punchlines. Jokes, setups, punchlines. Not cheesy punchlines, well done punchlines. My new boy left me because I spent all of my money. My life's a joke, but at least it was pretty funny. It seemed so easy, could you shoot me in the head? On second thought, I don't want no stains in my bed. This is Woody Allen stuff, I was going to have someone to shoot me in the head, but then I realized I didn't want to clean up, Speaking of no role models, cutting in with a Woody Allen. Now I'll do a Bill Cosby. On second thought, I don't want the stains in the bed. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. That's 2 impressions of lecherous geniuses. My heart is broken and my friends are all in jail. The world is burning, so I guess I went to hell. So when you hear these lyrics, you might be thinking that this is just this terribly sad, the world is burning, so I guess I went to hell. But the lyrics are just so upbeat. And then it gets the chorus of just, I don't care. And it's funny because it sort of reminds me of that, was that Kesha? I don't care, I love it. You know that song from like 20 years ago that I never listened to on purpose? I don't think it's Kesha though. It's somebody. I love it, I don't care. It's not that. It's not that kind of like... This is not the I don't care of bratty excess consumption. It's the I don't care of just sort of... Well, I was going to quote this later, but of what they refer to, what Carpet Garden refers to as optimistic nihilism. So in Lyric Genius, there's a little description from David, that's Carpet Garden's real name. IDC is a really chaotic song about embracing identity and flaws and giving up in the most positive way. Giving up in the most positive way. So I don't like the part about the woke up with the dick in the mouth and all that stuff, and I'm so high, oh my God. But if kids can learn to give up in a positive way, that's actually not a bad lesson. Before I came out as trans, I was always hiding parts of myself, so I blended in more to the people around me. Once I came out, I didn't really have to blend in anymore, since being trans is still an idea a lot of people turn their heads to. I've lost a lot of relationships with very judgmental friends. They're not your friends. That's my side. And family, because, and if they reject you, I wouldn't call them your family either. Family is earned. It's not just given. But that's still my side. Friends and family because of my gender identity and sexuality. IDC is really about that optimistic nihilism, that sort of release to be yourself and find community after the abandonment. So, very clearly, they are thinking at a pretty deep level here about what they're singing. So it might seem silly and hedonistic, but it's not. It is this nihilistic optimism. Optimistic nihilism, which is actually an important thing for young people. This is the thing. Like when we talk about why is Kurt Cobain a generational defining person, it's simple as hell. It's just because the name of the album is Nevermind. That's it. That was it. That was the generational defining sentence of my generation. Was Nevermind. Okay, whatever. Like that's just that was what we said. Okay. Watch Fight Club if you want to know more, or any other kind of weird toxically masculine take on our version of nihilism. But it wasn't optimistic, it was resigned. It was basically resignation. It was pointless resignation in a land of plenty. 1990s, according to Professor Sky. But here, it's optimistic nihilism. It's the optimism of youth. It's the belief that you can change things, but then also the realization that nothing means anything because you're constantly disappointed and the world's on fire and you're all going to hell. This is that thing that those record company... there's so many insults that are ableist, so I'll just go back to schmuck. Yiddish word for dong. These industry schmucks just can't figure out. Like, how easy is this? How easy is it to understand that this is the expression of this generation? Optimistic nihilism. It's perfect. Look at the world that we've given them. And yet they're optimistic. Look at the world we've given them, and yet they're nihilistic. Are those opposite values? Optimism and nihilism? No. That's the whole point. It's just us old folks can't quite get it. I'm making a big pitch to be an A&R man here. I don't care. Everybody hits me, but I'm not afraid to bleed. Gave him all my loving, and he turned his back on me. I'm on my own. So this sort of joking, funny abandonment and realization of their aloneness. Closes off with the protagonist being in the bed of the guy who left them. So it's kind of, not the best message there. And then the sort of ode to being fated. I don't know. Do you have to use so many curse words? Do you have to make drug usage appear so appealing? Fortunately, we'll see at the end of the album, it's clear that the drug usage is not appealing. It's self-medication, all that stuff. But it doesn't matter because it's great music made by the voice of the generation, optimistic nihilism. Is it clear how badly I want to be Dave Marsh and Lester Bangs and all those people? If you don't know, that's my ego right there. Like that's my dream. Like when people ask me what is my dream with this channel, it's not to be Fantano. I love Fantano, but I don't want to be Fantano, and I couldn't be Fantano. I want to be the next Lester Bangs. That's if you ever want to know, that's the little egotistical thing inside my brain. Let's move on to the rest of the album a little bit quicker with the song What a Wonderful Day. Ukulele? Ooh, I don't like ukulele in general, but it's good. I like it because ukulele is a part of a whole bunch of goofy sounding childish music. And this is on purpose. The album cover itself is like some claymation with some bright figures. It's sort of like Perfect Day by Lou Reed, where it's sort of like a twisted take on a good day, talking about getting too high and all that. But then there's like whistles and bells, and there's even an engineer's whistle going on here. And what I like here is that it's sort of talking about about this might be a sort of COVID song. They said later they wrote this all during COVID, where like everything's so wonderful because everything's the same, and then later everything's so terrible because everything's the same. This reminds me a lot, and I doubt this is on purpose, of the Stromae songs that ended his most recent album, about a terrible day and a wonderful day. But I like this sort of outward setting. Again, this is that optimistic nihilism which permeates the entire album. Where it's sort of like this positive thing and sort of like this negative thing. That leads into the song Dada Song, which realistically is probably even better than that song that I had you listen to. I think it's probably even better than IDC, maybe less emblematic. It's got some warbled guitar, shaky voice, and just these great sort of underwater drums. These and I took a picture on the driveway. I look stupid, but it's okay. Every day just feels the same, like forever, ever, always. And I just love the things we do inside your room. And I don't know if I forgive you, but we can still have sex. That self-effacing punchline, bad decision making, but at the same time, just sort of funny. You know, I took a picture on the driveway. I look stupid, but it's okay. How many pictures of you are there in a driveway where you look stupid? I could tell you, I have many. The chorus eventually takes over. Like at the end of the song, it has this awesome ending where it just gets really chaotic and it just keeps repeating over and over again. Always on my mind, falling for you. Always on my mind. All these different sounds. One thing that I will say that will ruin the song for you, if you know the song as well as I do now. I had a lot of fun yesterday. My wife was preparing some Thanksgiving dishes, some sausage and sage stuffing, quite good. And I was listening to the song with my newborn, so another carpetgarden fan in the thing, and I was singing it, and I realized you can sing this song like Kermit the Frog and not miss a beat. Took a picture on the driveway. I look stupid, but it's okay. I don't know. I'm falling for you, and you're always on my mind. I didn't think of that. I would have asked David if that was an intentional influence, or maybe I've spent too much time watching my baby. Next song is Adrenaline. Total style change. This is almost like what I call Home Depot rock. Like it could be a sort of like a driving like song for your man cave. Of course, the lyrics go away from that. You know, it talks about being a good boy. A great pre-chorus where the guitar really emphasizes the melody. Again, I didn't ask Carpetgarden if they wanted to be compared to Kurt Cobain 75,000 times in an hour-long video. But the similarity that I find is that the thing about Kurt Cobain is it doesn't matter how rough and tumble he was or how cool and underground and indie he was. That guy could write hooks like Burt Bacharach, okay? That guy knew how to write hooks up until the end. That guy was Max Martin in Withdrawal, okay? That's who Kurt Cobain was. And you even listen to the later work, and it's like he couldn't stop himself. It was like hooks just came flying out of his brain. And this, I think Carpetgarden has a very similar ability here. This song also at times feels a little bit like 60s. Very cool, like doubled voice on the second verse. The whole thing has almost kind of like a 60s feel, which I guess sort of goes along that kind of Home Depot sort of white stripesy, black keysy, rocky rock style, but then just these great lyrics. I like to F up for entertainment. Feel Good is another great song with lots of hiss. I think that's added on purpose, kind of tickling sounds. Has a funny line at the end where they say, "But that's just so gay." Stay tuned to the interview to see us talk about that. I love the whining guitar and these sounds in the back on the chorus. And then again, a really great lyricist, love or lust, it's just a waste of my time. What a lonely thing to say, you know? Like, what a sincerely lonely thing to say, because usually if you think love is a waste of time, you at least give in to lust. Or if you think lust is a waste of time, you at least give in to the benefits of love. But to have them both be, that is some optimistic nihilism. Or that's maybe some pessimistic nihilism. I don't know. Then we get to the stamp IDC. And then we get to the song Mold with a great raggedy guitar, kind of like a Casio drum machine in the back. Full. And then this song totally took me off guard. Remember how I said there's I-core is not limited by genre because their identity is expansive and not restrictive? So the identity of the artist of I-core is expansive. Okay? That's why I think that I-core, or the voice of the new generation, does not have to be trans, but needs to be trans adjacent. By that I mean needs to be working in a space or in a mind space without those rigidly defined regressive perspectives on gender and identity, right? Like that. So that's why, I mean, I don't know. I don't think Quatica is trans. I don't actually know what Quatica looks like. But the music and the feeling, it fits in that new evolved mindscape, right? So I-core is not limited by genre because identity is expansive and not restrictive. So when I hear this song and I think, what is this, the Postal Service? Like, are they singing with, like, maybe I can make it better? Like, what is this, Coldplay? Like, it's a real pop song. It's super duper pop song. But then when it comes right out of IDC, you know, like, it all kind of works together. If it was a whole album of maybe I can make it better, I'd be like, come on now, I don't want to listen to this. But because it's nested in this other context, it's great. It's this freedom. The freedom of I-core. Stop trying to make fetch a thing, Sky. It goes to show them, fetch is a thing. I-core is so fetch. I need to make merch. Would you buy that? Would you buy I-core so fetch? Fetch Sky. The album ends with the song Lonely, which, again, kind of like Mold, is almost too smooth for me. Very tight guitar and bass line, doubled voice, sort of... Okay, this is going to be controversial. Goat did not like it when I drew the comparison to Jack Johnson. Goat actually was forced to see a Jack Johnson concert over the summer. I feel terrible for her. But there's, you know, not everything about Jack Johnson's bad. Curious George is a good soundtrack. But this is sort of like a cooler version of that kind of LA warmth or kind of California warmth. But also having all the lyrics be in sort of in the queer space totally changes it and makes it more interesting. You know, my boy is my heaven. And I talk about this in the interview, but I really appreciate the representation of homosexuality as just like not at all. Nothing about it is crafted. It's just the person themselves describing their lives being reflected in their music. And like, that's the dream, right? That's the dream. That's the dream of progress, to where you don't notice, right? Like, we're at the phase now, as an example with racism, where most white people will see a black person and say there's a black person and they should be treated equally. Like, the place where we want to go is where those divisions are actually not noticed, and we just say there is another person, right? I mean, that's the ideal. We are nowhere near there, and no one on earth is race blind. So I'm not trying to say I don't see color. No, we all see color. But that's sort of the goal. The goal is to hear songs about gay relationships and not be a 45-year-old dude saying, "Oh wow, what good representation of queer relationships." Instead, just being like, "Yeah, that's just part of the song," which is what we're headed towards here. This is part of the what carpetgarden could do if they were given a large enough platform. I'm wasting time getting high. Don't repeat that sentence. I'm lonely. Don't repeat that ever. Thank you. The dad over here who really is trying to be cool. All this drug stuff. Sex stuff doesn't bug me, but the drug stuff really bugs me. But here at the end, if you're listening and you're thinking, yeah, I want to be just like carpetgarden and I want my eyes to turn into daisies and all that, I'm wasting time getting high. That's a very fair assumption, right? That's not judgmental. That's just wasting time. I'm lonely, don't repeat that. So the sex and the drugs, the way that carpetgarden is consuming them, the dongs and the drugs, is not leading to any kind of fulfillment, right? That's the problem with self-medicating, is every doctor has doctors have a fool for a patient when they treat themselves. That goes for self-medication. And also, I really love the idea of talking about a male partner being pretty with his clothes off. It's just, again, just things I haven't heard before. So there you go. There's my review. What do you think? Did you listen to the music? Could you tell me before you even get to the review? Did you listen to the music? Do you not hear what I'm saying? Do you not understand what I'm saying? And I understand I have a huge bias. I don't know what carpetgarden's fandom is like. Please tell me in the comments. Tell me I'm crazy. Say, carpetgarden already is super big. Carpetgarden already is a multi-platinum whatever. But I see it. And I wish that carpetgarden would get the kind of exposure that would allow them to have the kind of influence on the world that they've had on my daughter. And that isn't the kind of influence that's doing bad things, but it's appreciating good art and this vulnerability and this sweetness. And you'll get to it in the interview, okay? So let's watch the interview. Let me set up the interview briefly. I'm going to cut out the very beginning and the very end where I had my daughter meet carpetgarden, meet David. It's very sweet. I wish I could show it to you, but the internet is not a good place for young minds. But it was very sweet, just like, I like your music. I was so proud of her. That's what you should say when you meet an artist. I like your art. An artist can never hear that too much. But then she really wanted to stick around for the whole interview. And I don't have a particularly professional setup. So I had headphones in, because when you're recording an interview off Zoom, you can't can't record off the computer, because then you'll get kind of an echo. So I had to have headphones in. But you'll see I have one headphone in, and then the other headphone is attached off screen. And that's where Goat is just listening and soaking it all up. So you will see the shadow of Goat in the background. But it's a sweet, wholesome family thing for a sweet, wholesome family artist. All right. Well, then I'm just going to let the interview go out. I'm not going to tag the interview at the end. So, you know what, though? I do want to thank my Patreons. I didn't thank them in the last one, and they're super useful, and I really appreciate their help. As you're going to learn, carpetgarden is eventually going to come out with merch, and when they do, I'm probably going to buy some for my daughter, and some of that money might come from here. So, all right. Wacky week here. A wacky week here at Professor Sky's Record Review. There's the camera. You might find it funny how I really ended up learning about you was my daughter, who's over here in the shadows. So we don't listen to Spotify because I just don't like it. I prefer Tidal. And then okay. I saw that she downloaded Spotify on her phone, and she told me a year later it was to listen to your album Nightmare on Weed Street.
Oh, wow.
But she was afraid I would see it and go, Weed Street? What kind of marijuana cigarettes are you listening to? So she kept it a total secret. And then last year I did my best of the year, and she's like the world's biggest Billie Eilish fan, and so her persona on the channel is Goat. So, sometimes I'll make reference to my daughter as Goat. And so I said, what's the album of the year for Goat? And she said, your album. And it went over Billie Eilish, and I was shocked. I was like,
oh,
what?
I'm flattered. I love Billie. Billie's awesome.
Yeah, Billie is awesome, but the way he looks won out that year. So
wow, that's so cool.
Yeah. So I thought it'd be fun to kind of go back and forth, sort of questions from me as somebody who knows your music, but only through sort of whenever she plays it for me. And I've listened to your new EP quite a few times. I'm going to do a review of it, and I'm very excited to talk about it. And then sort of go to a question from a fangirl. So how would you describe your music to somebody who just hasn't heard it?
I've been trying to figure that out. I would say like indie alternative queercore, because I know like originally queercore is more of like a punk like genre,
Mm-hmm.
but like I think there are like some punk aspects to like I guess like the music that I make.
Right.
But yeah, like I guess like indie alternative queercore is like
Okay.
how I describe it.
Now, is there, because I'm sort of an old guy, um, is there any like older musicians that people compare you to and you're like, I don't know who they are, but I guess that's cool. Because like when I was younger, I was always compared, my band was always compared to Dinosaur Jr., which is like a sneaky way of saying that our lead singer wasn't very good. But I don't know if there's any bands like that where people come up and say, you remind me so much of this. And you're like, I don't know.
I you know I haven't gotten like really like come I don't know. I don't think like a lot of people like compare me to stuff. I feel like it's more like so like stuff that is like now like a lot of other like bedroom pop artists.
Mm-hmm.
Like I get like grouped into a lot of like like genres like or like artists within like that genre. But as
Right.
far as like older like stuff, I don't know. Like I my brother one time told me actually, yeah, I don't know. Like it was something my brother said, but I don't really remember it. But
Well, when I first listened to your music, what I thought of, not so much like in the way it sounds,
Mhm,
but because I grew up in the 90s, as opposed to the sort of queer core stuff, although I definitely
mhm.
hear obviously a lot of the thematics there, but it just reminds me a lot of like slacker rock, which was like really
Yes.
big in the 90s. Like Pavement was the best example. I remember seeing them in concert and just like they were just like the coolest people on earth because they were just so cool and just so, but it seems like being a slacker is a little bit out of vogue right now with these young people today. So
Yeah, no, I absolutely love like slacker rock. Yeah, I think like like stuff like adrenaline from the EP and stuff
mhm.
like definitely like I have a lot of inspiration from like slacker or like just like garage indie from the 90s because like
Right.
obviously that has had that resurgence, so I've been playing that a lot on like all my playlists and stuff. So
Right. Well, I mean, speaking of playlists, I mean, because I'm from the older school and, you mentioned having a brother. So all the music I listened to growing up was just, I had three older brothers. They told me what was cool and I listened to it. And so
that
I've always
exactly
been
how I
like,
was.
that's how you were too.
Yeah.
So when my kids are growing up and they're all like listening to this algorithm, I'm like, it's just not good. I used to go down to the record store. My brother would tell me what's cool. But the only reason that I've ever heard of you is because the algorithm you know, told my daughter, you might like this. And then she found you, and then you're like her favorite artist. So it's maybe it's not all so bad these days.
Yeah, it's like it's interesting how that all works because like I remember I guess like I kind of grew up with like a little bit of like because when my brother when like he was younger he was like into like MySpace and like on like a lot of like the MySpace emo stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like not definitely not like the like typical, oh, I went to the record store and like this is like what all the cool people listen to. It was more so like, oh, these are like here's like Never Shout Never that I've been listening to like since I was like 10 or like 11, and it was just
Right.
like this guy posting his essentially like voice memos onto like MySpace and stuff.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah. Yeah. It's awesome. Well, let's get to the first goat question. This is a big one right here. So she's going very, very heavy here. What is the difference between David and Carpet Garden?
Oh, okay, that's an
Wow.
interesting one.
It's better than any of my questions, to be honest.
I think uh the difference between David and Carpet Garden, I think like definitely Carpet Garden is a lot more extroverted than I am. I feel
Okay.
like David is very like introverted and like kind of just like to themselves. Like I feel like I'm to myself a lot. Um but as far as like I feel like Carpet Garden kind of brings out a lot in me and like kind of just like makes me a little bit more confident as far as like music cuz like I don't know, I put a lot of myself into my music, and I feel like once I'm like on stage like performing it all, it's like I kind of feel like very like confident and like
Right.
like I feel like I'm like making a difference and stuff. I feel like it's just like I don't know, like just like
Yeah,
kind of
yeah.
just trying to like put myself a little bit more out there with Carpet Garden.
Yeah, so it's not even really that there's two different people. It's just sort of two sides of the same person, and the one side could just be more out there. Oh, this wasn't on my list. Do you have a name for your fans? Are they the carpetbaggers
The Carpetbaggers. I
or the
made
gardeners?
I made I mean it's like I made a joke about it, but I don't know if I should say it.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll say carpet munchkins.
Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
understand. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, carpet munchkins is actually funnier than carpet munchers. So
Yes.
just saying that is actually funny. That's objectively funnier as a title. And how would you describe your fan base? Because all I know is one 14, soon to be 15-year-old girl.
I think my fan base is I feel like they're like pretty diverse. Like I have a lot of like people like my age and a lot of like younger people who just like I don't know, like relate to it cuz like I feel like I can get like especially like my earlier stuff. I was like writing all that stuff whenever I was like 16 or like 17. So there's a lot of
Mhm.
like teen angst in there. And
Right.
like, like I feel like a lot of people can relate to that. And yeah, I guess like it's pretty diverse. I feel like I have like at least like one song for everyone to like
Right.
listen to. I like to be a lot like very diverse with my music and like put all of my music tastes because I kind of just like get into uh a certain genre and just like hyper fixate on it for like 2 weeks. And then I'm
Right.
just like, okay, now I have all this inspiration from this one thing I've been listening to.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you talk about people relating, it's really funny because at one point, it was after I knew I was going to do this, and so we were listening to more of your music, and my daughter and I, we like got lost like this really sunny day, and I went the wrong direction, and we were just kind of walking around. She was quoting one of your songs about losing a phone in an Uber and being super stoned and lost somewhere, and it was really funny because she was like, "I just totally relate to their music." Totally like their music, even though I don't do any of the things that they sing about at all. And I was like, you see, that's why music is great, because it isn't about doing those things. I didn't do any of the things that Led Zeppelin did. And that didn't
Mm,
mean that Led Zeppelin didn't help me when I was 15 years old. So
mm,
I definitely hear that in your music, the ability to relate to it and that vulnerability. And it's not about really what you're saying, it's sort of how you're saying it, and that it comes across as very honest.
yeah, I feel like it's I like to be very vulnerable and just like kind of like pretty transparent within my music because like I mean originally I started writing it because like it was like kind of like my diary a little bit. So
Right.
like I kind of like to just like put people through my shoes, I guess, instinctively
Right.
when I write.
Now I feel bad because you gave me the perfect segue to my next question, but I had to go off on a little tangent. So you're talking about the different styles that you have. And so Goat
Mm.
asks, past albums, well, okay, I might have crafted this question a little bit for her. Past albums sounded more similar thematically and sonically cohesive. I might have phrased that. But this EP does seem more varied in its styles. Is that sort of an intentional thing where it's sort of more like jumping around in different styles?
I think um like I feel like in the past few years like my project has like gotten a lot bigger than it used to be and I feel like also I've gotten a little bit like better at like like making music I like to think
Yeah,
but
I would
yeah
agree.
I think like these like past two albums I feel like have been a lot of experimentation because like I'm like kind of coming into myself just like in life. I like just recently turned 23. So like I'm like kind of like sort of figuring my stuff out. Not really, but
Yeah,
you
that's
know,
the beginning of figuring stuff out.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. Like I just like I've been going through a lot of different changes like in the past few years, as well as just like going through changes with like musically and like inspiration because
Mhm.
like I don't know. I just like find myself in like a very like inspired place, and like I kind of just want to do everything. So I've just
Right.
been doing everything that I can. Um, but yeah, it's as far as it like being having like a lot of different sounds and stuff, I think that was just like me kind of like coming into my sound a little bit more, and just like being like not holding back like what type of music I want to like make.
Right. This is a question I didn't know if I was going to ask, but I'm interested with the sort of level of notoriety and fame that you're at. Are you sort of afraid of taking off like on TikTok? Like, because I'm thinking like if like IDC really hits, right? And
Mhm.
it's like that's a particular sort of cool throwback 50s, this, that. And then it's like, are you gonna get like Steve Lacy and all of a sudden everyone's just gonna want to say, I don't care, and you're gonna try to play everything else? Like, is that something you just want so much so that you can support yourself? Or how do you feel about that?
I think as far as just like obviously like for like the environment that like artists are in right now, it is like about like trying to get like your TikTok like hit, or like like whatever, like your viral internet moment. But like I
Right.
feel like I don't know, I just like I definitely just like kind of write my songs still from like an emotional or like just like a like creative way, just like to have fun. So like I definitely like it would be cool to have like a song pop off. I'm definitely not afraid of like,
Okay.
blowing up. It's a little scary to think about like if it does ever like happen, but I don't know. I feel like I'm chilling either way. Like I love just like the smaller community that I have, and like the ability to like create stuff in the way that like I like to.
Right.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm just kind of just going with the flow and just like making my art. I don't try to like stress too much about like success or like whatever.
Yeah, that's probably the best way to be. My next question is kind of a punky question. WTF is even going on? So if that's your album, if an artist ever has a question in an album title, I always assume they might have an answer. So I'll just ask you that. I'm telling you, she has better questions than I do. Do you have an answer to your own question?
Yeah, I think the reason why I made it that, it was actually I was talking to my label, and they
Mhm.
were asking me like, "Oh, what did you want to call the EP?" And like the mindset that I was in at the time was like, "Oh, like my the way he looks like, like kind of like put me a little bit like, out there like
Mhm.
more, and I've never like seen that kind of like interest, I guess. Like I've seen like interest in like small niche communities, but like as far as just like like music people and like stuff like that being like interested, and like people, I started meeting people that like I looked up to.
Right.
So I was just like, what is going on? Like I don't know what's going on. I literally, and also it was during COVID when I was writing that.
Right.
So when I actually like when I got signed, it was during COVID, and I got signed over email. I had literally never talked to like my manager or met him or like
Wow.
anything. Like I like it was like I took like pretty much a complete 180. Like I got fired from like my job.
Okay.
I like was living at my parents' house. I was like, doing music for like a while, since like 2019. But or like actually a little earlier than that, like maybe like 20 something, around that time. I was in college. I like um COVID happened, and then I got like signed randomly because I was just bored, kind of, and just like I was like, oh, this label hit me up. Like honestly, like I'll work with them. Like it seems cool. And I don't know, my life kind of took like a weird 180, and like a lot of changes in my life. And I was just like, what is going on right now? I can't comprehend this.
That ended up being a good question. What do you know?
Yeah.
Well, it's funny because the cover, it looks very much like sort of like a kid's show with like claymation. That's Goat's
Mhm.
question. Do you make your own album covers?
So I have, yeah, I've done a lot of um so my first album cover, Night from Nightmare on Weed Street, was made by my friend Birdology. And she just replied, or they just replied to my story and was like, like, can I make an album cover for you? And I'm like, yes.
Yep.
But I did the covers to Fast Food Diet. I did Dada Song, which is like a multimedia like
Right.
scanning kind of cool thing. Yeah, I've made a few. The person who's behind my two, because I have two covers for this current EP, are my friend Lena and my friend Gabby, who I love very dearly, and they're very talented. Um, but yeah, I've made some of them, and I also most of the people that I commission are very small artists that I just
Right.
like find or like my friends. So
Yeah,
yeah.
and you're in LA, is that right?
Yes, I moved
Okay.
here in like 2020 during COVID,
Oh,
kind
okay,
of.
but you're originally, I mean, I feel your music is very Californian, but I don't know if I'm just projecting because
Yeah, I
yeah.
I'm from Fresno actually.
Oh
Or
my
well, I'm actually
gosh.
from Kerman, which is like a
Okay.
small farm town of like maybe like 15,000 people, which is like
Yes.
right outside of Fresno. But yeah, I moved here because not even like for music, it was because my best friend moved and I was bored.
Yes. Well, I moved to Los Angeles in my early 20s for exactly the same reason. I had no good reason to go to Los Angeles. Although that said, I have spent a little bit of time in Fresno, and that's a tough place. I imagine a tough place to grow up being very creative, and it's
Yeah,
yeah.
I think like definitely growing up there, like it seems like it would be like, like very closed off, but also with like every like with limitations come like people who are gonna work with it and like
Right.
do what they can do. So like I actually feel like the art scene there is like on the verge of like blossoming. Like I feel like a lot
Wow.
of people there are really talented and really motivated. And now they like with social media and stuff, they have more of an outlet to like like get out there and use that kind of like motivation and just like boredom like out of just like
Right.
kind of being from like the middle of nowhere and like use that to like work harder and just like do everything like and just like express themselves and like show off like what they got.
Yeah, yeah, as opposed to just being another person from LA being from Fresno, and
Yeah.
I think the only thing I really remember there is like a tower there. Is that right? It's like
Yes,
a big tower. Yes.
it's called the Tower District. It's like the like LGBT center, like all the cool bars and
Oh,
like all the
cool. Wow.
shows happen there. I went to
I
this
think
like
yeah, I must have been there 25 years ago or something. Maybe it's gotten better. But
yeah, it's I feel like now it's pretty cool. Like I mean, I liked it.
well, that's great. Yeah, that was I told you the story one time about when it was super hot and I was somewhere in California. I was in Fresno, and someone was
Yep.
selling fruit, and I was all excited to get some fruit, but I didn't know this was like Authentico, so it was all like covered in salt, and I had no idea. And it was very good, but I was like, the taste, I was expecting fruit, and then it was just this very very interesting time there. So Goat has a question about a lyric at the end of "I really wish you would please effing cooperate, but that's just so gay." Is that the lyric, and if so, in what way do you mean that?
So I think
She's quite embarrassed, by the way, by the
no,
fact that I asked this question.
no, it's all good. Yeah, I feel like I think that song in particular is like I mean it's in like a happy mood, but I
Right,
the lyrics are like a lot more like about some of like the problems and stuff that like like just growing up, growing pains and stuff, and like
right,
sometimes you don't make the right choices and like sometimes you're like damn, like I wish I did this better, I did this better, but like that's gay, like I'm gonna do whatever, like it's like kind of using it in like the slang term, but
right.
like it's just like I'm just like nah, fuck it, I'm doing whatever, I'm young and dumb,
Yeah.
so
Yeah, it's funny because I try to explain to my kids how often I use that term growing up in exactly that
mm,
way. And I mean, there was not only was there no malice, I didn't even conceive of there being malice possible, and now I wouldn't
mm,
ever. So I think maybe that's why that line jumped out, because I'm obviously it's bad that I used to do that, but I never even really thought of it.
yeah, no, I was exactly the same way whenever I was younger, so it was like my older brother, and I was just like I was pretty much using it in exactly that way, but I thought it
Right.
was funny because like
Yeah.
carpetgarden make
Because
saying that's so gay.
yeah, and that's and it's good, sort of taking the term and using it for yourself. The
Mm,
next question is sort of a combo. So I had sort of a pretentious question about the songwriting process. And then Goat had a question: do you really write on the walls? Because on the song Mold, you say that you write all your songs on the walls. So we can kind of combine those together into one question about your
Mhm.
songwriting process.
So like basically I have written songs on the walls. I like most of that was like a like like a play on words because like it was like I was writing it kind of during COVID. So like
Mhm.
I was like so like bored that like I'm just like writing so much music and just writing it all over the walls and like I like most of that was like like just like a metaphor really for just like like boredom and like mental health kind of like struggles and stuff
Right.
and like that being my only outlet. But as far as my actual songwriting process, I pick up a guitar, I sit in my bed with my cat, I strum some chords until I find something cool, and then I just like come up with melodies and like freestyle words, and then kind of just like weirdly enough, it just like it somehow like always relates to something I'm not experiencing at the time, but then it like 4 months later, I'm like, oh my God, like I'm literally living this song that I wrote 4 months ago. It's like actually really weird. I mean, it kind of also depends. Like, if I'm like really emotional, like I remember I wrote "Can Ghost Be Gay" after like um going to a show and like seeing like my ex and stuff, and like I
Uh-huh.
was very emotional then. I think I wrote that when I was like 19 or something. It was actually a demo before I put it on the album, like on SoundCloud and stuff. And I wrote it on ukulele originally,
Right. Wow.
but
Yeah.
yeah, I usually just like it's usually starts with like me picking up an acoustic guitar and just like writing and like kind of just like playing and chilling.
Yeah. Well, and that's, I mean, that's good, because I think that I was interested in that in particular because you say that you get really into some sort of style. So I didn't know if maybe you're on some kind of Weezer kick where you sort of break down what makes a song like that. I mean, it doesn't come across. It comes across as very loose and honest, which obviously really does appear to be the thing that people are responding so well to in your music, which is lucky because you get to just be you.
Yeah, yeah, I think I'm very lucky to like, like be able to like project my words and stuff into a way that like people like can relate to, and like people are open to hearing like just like my perspective on like life or just like things that are happening, and just like topics like love or like gender or like whatever like is going on in people's lives.
Well, I think, definitely as a straight guy who grew up in a fairly homophobic environment and everything, I do definitely I really appreciate the way you handle sexuality,
Mhm.
because, obviously there's been a lot of male musicians who talk about sex with men. But the way you do it, that's sort of neither pornographic nor is it like skirting around it. It's very direct, but not quite pornographic. And
Yeah,
yeah.
I like to I feel like I I starting out like I feel like I kind of like when I was like a teenager, I like was really like honest about just like my sexuality and stuff like from the start. And I think I like to like present it in like just like a normal way. Like I don't want to like make it too like I don't need to go into that much detail, but also
Right.
like I like don't want to like hold back. Like I feel like especially like being like I don't know, like being a musician now, I just like during like the time of now, like I just feel like I don't like want to like hold back, but also like like I don't really like want to like be too overly like whatever. I just like am unapologetically like very gay.
Yeah, and I think it could also just be the fact that, at least, I've never heard that soundscape with very gay thematics. So like slacker
Mhm.
rock and slacker core, and talking about getting stoned and just chilling out and all that, and then it's like my dick's in your mouth. It's like, okay, like there's something about that that's, I'm sorry you had to hear that. There's something about that I find it very like very positive, like a very great leap forward in sort of
Mhm.
what gay expression can be in music. I don't think that you're writing manifestos and saying this is what I'm going to do, but as a outsider, you know, to all of it, I see it and go, oh, this is a really good step forward, is sort of not just like making sure that all of human experiences get to be said in every single way. So
Yeah, I feel like I like it's all like really personal like stuff to me, and like you know, a lot of the stuff that like I write, like I have like true experience in. So like I'm not necessarily like, you know, like I feel like I'm just like saying what happens like
yeah,
through my eyes. And like I I think a lot of people like LGBT people like really like that, because you know that is like exactly how like you know stuff goes down. But like
yeah,
also I think it's very like I think it's cool that like a lot of straight people listen to my music. Like I think like it's we live in a society now where like you know you can be everyone, and a lot of people are like way more accepting, and I hope to push that even forward to where like you know like everything is just normalized, we're all equal and stuff
yeah,
like that. And I
yeah,
think
exactly.
especially now there's a lot of artists doing that, like Chloe Moriando, Girl in Red, like
Yeah,
you know just like a lot of like cool people.
yeah, it's awesome. So we, you know, we were talking about it being your birthday yesterday, and a couple lines in this new EP. I like to fuck up for entertainment, and then I waste time getting high. I'm lonely. Don't repeat that ever. So what I'm wondering is like, are you feeling maybe like constrained by the sort of party time, like you know, fucking up lyrics? Are you sort of like moving to sort of a more mature garden?
Yeah,
Or yeah,
I or wait, you can continue the
no,
question,
no, no.
sorry.
What you're going to say is much more interesting.
I think, you know, like that I think especially like Adrenaline and like Lonely, those two songs were more just like kind of looking back at, you know, just like the person that I am, or like the person that I was in the past, because like I did party a little bit, and like you know like there was a lot going on in my life, like um before like I moved here. And like I was just kind of like reminiscing on like the person, or like person that like I was in the past, and like you know just like writing in that perspective again. um and like reflecting, because I feel like you know like I have been through like a lot of like stuff like involving just like you know family, like my environment, like how I dealt with like the problems that were going on in my life. And I don't know, just like looking back on like the person that I was, and just like um you know like really just like processing that, I guess, like
Right.
while I was like writing the music and stuff. And like I think is like the reasoning behind like those lyrics pretty much, because like it was it's I feel like the CP, there was a lot of like reminiscing on like the past,
Okay.
and like how much I've
Yeah.
like moved forward.
Yeah. Awesome. Um, it is almost goat's bedtime here. Um, I don't know if something about a fit. Oh, that's how people talk about fashion. If you showed me
Mhm.
a picture of one of their fits without their face, I would know it's them. So I guess this is a general question about the importance of fashion in your work. Is that the basic idea? I got one of these.
I mean, yeah, I like to wear what I want. I you know was going to school for fashion and stuff. I like know how to sew and make my own clothes. I
Oh
love
wow.
fashion. I love like visuals. I just like I don't know. I feel like I'm an artistic person through like every point in my life. Like
Hmm.
if I'm like putting on clothes, I try to put it on in a way that like suits my personality and like feels creative and stuff. So I just like usually wear a lot of like random things basically.
Right.
um but yeah, I love like making clothes and stuff. So fashion is very important to me. Visuals are very important to me, just like as a whole.
Right. Well,
And yeah.
I think that was the point of her question. So I do also know that I think she wants you to make more merch. so that I had more things to get her for Christmas and stuff. She said there's only like a cassette or something. There's only one thing to buy.
I
It's a
have I
cassette.
have merch on the way. I have merch on
Okay.
the way. We just like came up with like new merch designs. I was like working with my friend on it. So don't you worry. Got
Okay.
you.
I mean, I guess that's a plug, but yeah. Wow. Well, well, this is really great. Is there anything else you want to kind of get out there to my, my audience is they probably know your music more than I do, just because I'm a little bit more out of it. But is there anything more you'd want to communicate or want to say about this new music? If
Um,
oh,
I
are you
mean,
going to be touring?
oh, there are talks of a tour. I cannot announce yet because
Okay.
like we're trying to like put down like all the dates and stuff. But
Okay.
there are
But
talks.
might I suggest Western New York? It's a very nice place
Oh,
this time of
true,
year. It's
true.
lots of snow. You can go sledding or whatever.
No, yeah, honestly, I want to go to New York so bad. I've never been like outside of like the West Coast, honestly. Like
Oh wow.
I literally had to like get my passport and stuff for the first time. It was a whole ordeal. But
Yeah.
yeah, they're like I don't know, my new EP just came out. So, if you're a new listener, please come and check it out. It's pretty cool, I think. But yeah, I'm just working on a bunch of music and writing a lot. So there will be a lot more coming in the future. I'm like working on like a lot of cool new stuff. I've been working in like Blender and like 3D animation, stuff like that.
Oh wow.
Like, yeah, I'm a computer nerd,
Okay.
if you can't tell. But yeah, I have a lot of cool stuff coming soon.
All right. Awesome. Cool. Well, I think if you want to come back on, how